Hey everyone, my name's Randy,
And I'm Ray.
and we're going to be reviewing super rares for the upcoming expansion Azurite Sea for Lorcana.
Green.
Alright, we're starting off with Daisy Duck. She's a 4-cost inkable, stats are 3/3. Her effect, whenever one of your pirate characters quests while at a location, you may draw a card, and she quests for 2. What do you think?
It's not bad. I mean, if you're running a pirate deck, and there's a lot of new pirate support coming out, and this is sounds like a good one. Quest while at a location, draw a card. That sounds good. You're going to have locations in that type of deck probably. The stats are good. It's inkable. She quests for 2. I think overall she's usable in a pirate deck.
Yeah, I think, for a lot of folks, when you think of pirates and location, you probably go to Jolly Roger. That's the 1-cost location that pirates can move there for free and they gain rush. The main reason, obviously, gaining rush is beneficial, right, if you choose to attack the turn that you're played. But with this needing to be at a location, that might seem like, oh, it's an extra step. But when it's just a 1-cost and free to move, I think many pirates can get there. They can quest and then just get a good amount of free draw. So I think there's some potential here for sure in a pirate deck.
Yeah, she's just overall good stats and good effect. So I think if there's a pirate deck that's getting popular, then she's definitely going to be in it.
Cool. What do you rate it?
I give it a 3. It's not super powerful on its own. It's it's a synergy type of deck card for a deck, and if that type of deck pops off, then she'll be in it. But if there's nothing, then she's not really strong on her own.
Yeah, I think 3 as well, because it's specific to this archetype of pirate. But I think if you're running it in a green pirate deck, you're going to run 4 of her. So within that concept of 4, but just as a whole in terms of play and potential, I say this is a 3-star.
Peter Pan. It's a 7-cost, inkable, 4/6 stats, quest for 1. He enters play exerted, and he has the effect, while this character is exerted, each opposing player can't gain lore unless one of their character has challenged this turn. Initial thoughts?
Very similar to what we reviewed earlier with respect to the cost of the card. It's not a shift, it's just a full out 7. 4/6 stats not the best, 1 lore not the best. And what it does is it slows your opponent down, right? So they can't gain lore. So that's a better effect, I think. But I don't think this is quite the best thing, right? If you want to slow your opponent down, you've got Lyle, right? So when one of your characters is banished, they lose lore. This forces them to challenge. If you don't have, I don't know, anything they can take out, then maybe they don't get lore that turn. But I just don't think that this is enough to slow someone down. It doesn't have ward, for example. It doesn't have resist. It's just a 4/6 body, decent stats, but just one character needs to challenge, and then the rest can quest or you can gain lore other ways. So too late into the game, I don't think that this has much of an impact.
Yeah, I think the cost is just the main hang up on this one, just like the other example. Stats are okay for, they're mediocre for that cost. Quest for 1, that's nothing. Effect isn't that bad. I like the fact that you have to challenge, so kind of forces your opponent to take action. They have to, do something, otherwise they just can't quest. But again, it's expensive. He doesn't have ward or any other sort of protection, so it's kind of just an okay effect. What do you give it?
I would say a 1. This is a 1-star for me.
I say 2. He's a lot better than the Jim Hawkins. His stats are okay. He's inkable. His effect is, I think it has potential. That's why I'm giving it the extra star. It seems weak on first glimpse, but I think there could be some potential there to, synergize them, give them ward or something, and then it'll just be a big pain for your opponent.
Interesting. All right, so now we're going to talk about the last super rare in Emerald. This one is Bend to My Will. It's an action card, 7 costs, it's not inkable. What this does, each opponent discards all cards in their hand. What do you think, Ray?
I think initially this card sounds a little scary, but I think it's more in the mediocre range. The cost is a bit too much, it's not inkable, and typically with the green deck, you're trying to discard them early, so it's not going to fit into that, that type of deck.
Yeah, I think on paper, people think it fits into that deck, right? Because I'm trying to discard your hand. But like you're saying, if that's your plan earlier in the game, by the time you get to 7 ink, you'll ideally have discarded everything.
Yeah, unless you're playing some different type of deck where you want this late game. And for instance, like if you do Whole New World, you sing Whole New World, you draw this, you discard your opponent's hands, it's going to be devastating. But that's kind of more of a niche combo. And at that rate, your opponent's probably going to be expecting that, so they're going to play around this type of combo.
I think it's like, I think it sounds good on paper, but it's so reliant on like too much luck, I think, right? Because you'll need to have a singer that's 5 or higher to sing Whole New World, and then you're hoping to draw this from the 7 cards that you draw. And if you get it, awesome. But how many times will you end up getting that combo? Maybe not as often as you think. Because I don't think this is a card you want 4 of in your deck, right? It's uninkable, and if, let's say, you use the effect and you draw another one, it's basically not useful.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. If you're only going to use this once at best, maybe twice if the game goes crazy. But if the game's going crazy, it's already crazy.
Yeah.
I think it just has too many drawbacks. Not inkable, you can't sing it, and then it's green, so it just doesn't have synergy with the discard type archetype. I think it's just the mediocre. It sounds really scary on paper, but I don't think people are going to be too afraid after the first few weeks of the expansion.
Yeah, I think it'll see some play early on, but I think people will quickly realize that this just doesn't work as well as they would hope. I know some have called attention to a couple of combos, like there's an Iago, he's a 4 cost, and when he quests, I believe, discounts in action by 2. So you play him on turn 4, right? On turn 5, you ink, you're at 5 ink, he quests, now this Bend to My Will is at 5 cost, and you discard their hand. But like my thought there is, if I'm playing somebody and I see them do this, and I'm just going to try to empty my hand, right? I'll ink something and I'll play all my small cards that I wouldn't normally play, just so that I don't get everything discarded, or just take out Iago if I have the means to do it, right? So I think that there's like a pretty obvious setup that this is coming. And then later on in the game, if you draw this, like I'm already probably not at 50 cards in hand, so it wouldn't be too devastating.
Yeah, especially it costs 7, so you're going to waste your whole turn to discard 2 cards or something, and they're already playing around.
Yeah.
And even with the Iago, like if they see that, they're going to suspect something, especially, if this card's going around during that tournament or wherever you are, like they're going to suspect that, so they're going to play around it more.
Yeah. So what do you rate it?
I give it a 2. I think it's going to see play. It's just a fun, scary card, and it's cool. It has a cool effect, but I don't think it's going to be in any like serious tournaments, that type of gameplay.
Yeah, I think this is a 2. I think it'll see play early on, and very quickly people will realize this isn't it. Kind of like Prince John's Mirror, I think. So I give it a 2 also.
Yeah.
We have Jasmine. She's a 6 cost inkable. Her stats are 5/5. She's a Floodborn, so shift 5. You reduce the cost of player by 1. Quests for 2. Her effect: when you play this character, if you use shift to play her, return all other exerted characters to their player's hand. What do you think?
Sounds interesting. I like the effect. It's pretty cool. You can use it offensively and defensively. Cost is okay. Inkable stats are okay. Shift 5 isn't anything to write home about. I wish it was a 4. But still good. Her effect is cool. That's the main focus here. But it has to be shift, so that takes a ding. If it was just regular play, it'd be a lot better. And the effect is interesting. I think you could take advantage of it, and it's useful. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think earlier we were looking at Jasmine cards to see what she might be able to shift on, and I don't think there was anything that really stood out, right? The other one was like a 5 cost that also shifts. So I don't think there was anything that we felt like, oh, this is good to play early and she can shift onto. So it would probably be a morph shift, most likely. And like this card needs to be shifted, right? In order to get the effect. So as a standalone, if we don't use the effect, 6 cost, 5/5, 2 lower, it's like, no way, I'm not going to play this, right? As a shift, there's potential. More than likely, your opponent will have exerted a lot of their cards, whether to sing or quest or whatever. The exception is probably going to be the character if they play one last turn. Everything else, so you have the potential to bounce in with it being your turn. You can refrain from exerting your characters play her first, bounce everything, and then exert unless you want to return some of yours for some reason. It feels like a large requirement for low payoff. And I know the requirement is just shift, but I mean large requirement in terms of it needing to be 5 cost, right? So I don't think this is a card that I particularly see many folks playing, and you mentioned the effect is interesting. I think it's okay. I don't think it's great.
I think what kills this card is just it has to be shift, and that's just too much. You're asking too much with all those weak Jasmines that are not good. And you were saying Morph which is a good idea. But still, 5 mana for this effect isn't the best. The stat line is okay. Like, without the effect, this card sucks. Like, the stats and the quest is nothing.
Yeah.
Shift effect can be cool, but it's more interesting than useful.
Yeah, I think if this were to be uninkable, or it were to be 7 cost or shift 5, and the effect, you know, could take place any way, it would be better, right? So if I needed to pay 1 more, but without shifting, I would be guaranteed the effect. Or if this wasn't inkable, but I can play it without shifting to get the effect, that would be okay. But to need to shift is rough. When you think of some of the Floodborn characters that are strong, so you've got Beast, you've got Robin, you've got Tinkerbell, you've got Cinderella, you know, you've got Diablo 3 cost to some extent. But a lot of these cards, like none of these cards require you to shift. You can play them on their own and still be able to take advantage of their effects. So this being one that requires you to shift to gain its effect, and I know there are some already out there, it's just asking for too much for a mediocre effect.
Yeah, I think just the mere fact that it's green, it doesn't have synergy with what you would want to use this effect. Like, for instance, like Tinker, you would want to bring her back so you can do her AoE again, or, you know, Simba or something like that, or just to heal them, basically. That's what I was thinking of when, you know, bounce it for your benefit.
Yeah.
But it's just too slow, too clunky. You have to shift, which is just, I think, the worst part. If it was cheaper cost, then it would be okay, but it's just too many dings on this one to even be usable, I think.
Yeah. What do you rate it?
I give it a 1.
Same.
I think the effect is still cool. It's an interesting effect. It's not powerful, at least not yet. I think this kind of effect has more potential in the future, where you can just take advantage of something that has a good, you know, when you play effects, such as a Tinker, but maybe there would be a stronger one or something like that. So it has that, but right now it's just a bad card.
Yeah, I think even like in a best of 2 or 3 format, if you play this on me, then I'll play around it, right? It's shift 5, so if you're at 4 and you've got a morph, then I'm not going to exert everything, right? I'll exert some things, but the things that I want to keep on board, I'll keep unexerted. So there's just too much like conditional requirement. You need to pay 5 to get the effect. You need to have a morph or a Jasmine to be able to shift onto. You need your opponent to have the cards that you want to bounce exerted. Because what if they have Rabbit and Goat exerted? Like, okay, I'm going to bounce them. Cool, I gain a lore and I draw a card, and then you get more cards in hand. So it's just like too many conditions. You need it to be like the perfect scenario for it to work out. They exerted everything, and I've got Ursula, Deceiver of All, and I bounce back, and then I'm able to sing Sudden Chill twice, and I've got another Ursula, Deceiver of All, and I'll sing Sudden Chill twice again, and now you've got nothing. Like, it's just so unlikely that this pays off that well for what you need in order to have this pay off. If it had something else, right? You gain 1 lore for every card that's returned. Okay, then I'll return my crap or my stuff and I'll gain 1 lore, but I think as it is, it's just way too weak.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So second Emerald Legendary. I think you'll like this one. This is a 6 cost uninkable. This is Hercules 6/3 in stats. Ward, so your opponent can't target this character except a challenge. A quest for 2. The effect, it's you pay 3 ink to deal 1 damage to chosen damaged character.
Initially, I like this card. 6 drop, 6/3, stats are a little weak for what you pay. Quest for 2, which is average. Ward, which is great, and his effect is pretty good. It's just basically gives you the power to shoot things down. You don't have to exert them. You can use it more than once in a turn. So he's basically an item that you can just shoot anything with ward. So it's hard to get rid of him if you don't exert him. And in desperate situation, he can attack something for 6, which is pretty good. I like him. What do you think?
Yeah, very much aligned on everything you said there. I think the 3 health is low, but because he's got ward, it almost doesn't matter, right? When you think of AoEs, you think maybe like grab your sword, but that's 2, so he still survives that. So, excuse me, then the other part of that is the ward is fantastic. It's just so difficult to deal with ward characters. Like you said, you don't need to exert them, you just play 3 ink. So it's just a great effect. It's an active effect, so as soon as you play him, you're able to. So if you're at 9 ink, you can play him for 6, and then you can deal 1 damage to a chosen damage character. And the fact that, you play him this turn, next turn, you can do it to 2 damage characters or 1 damage character twice. It's just a really good effect. And like you said, the 6 attack is so high that you can maybe help you clear out a location. If they've got a big threat, it can kind of contribute to that. Or you can pair it with your effect, right? You play it on turn 6, then turn 7, they've got 1 character with some damage. You can deal 2 damage using his effect twice, and then deal an additional 6 by trading into it, if it's like a big threat. So I think that it's an interesting card for sure. It's not going to go into every Emerald deck, but those that play it, it'll be really annoying to have to deal with.
Yeah, I really like this card. I think everything is good except the fact that he's Emerald. Like, I can picture this in a lot of other decks and be cool, but in an Emerald, it's kind of hard to put in that type of deck. Most of those decks.
Yeah, it's funny. It feels like it fit into gray really well.
Yeah, gray would be awesome. And it seems like a gray card, but it would be really strong there too.
Interesting.
All right, so what do you give it? I gave it this. I give it 4, and I would give it 5 if it was a gray or any other color really. Well, like gray or blue or red, purple. Most of those colors, but I really like this card nonetheless. It's really good. Everything about it is used. The ward, the effect is really good, and then his stats are also just good enough for what he does.
Yeah, I feel like I spoke highly of this card, and then I give it a 2-star rating. I think the main reason is, like you said, and I didn't think of this as much, but the color association, right, with it being emerald. It doesn't fully... I know that Emerald has a lot of, like, do this to damage character, do that to damage character. So in that regard, it fits. But in terms of meta, there isn't a deck that is focusing on, let me damage your characters, but let me not finish them off so that I can pull off my effects, right? So in that regard, I don't think that it'll see a play in a lot of decks. But I think when it does see play, it's a good effect. It's just not for everyone. And the one drawback is they need to already be damaged to deal an additional 1 damage. But I think it has potential. I think in the decks that play it, it'll be pretty fun and can do well. But I think as a whole, it probably won't see a lot of play.
Master, there are a few addendums.
Ray here. I didn't realize the card had to be damaged for you to use this effect, so I'm going to change my rating to a 1-star actually.
Comment down below if we're wrong or if we're right.
Yeah.
Or how wrong we are, how right we are.
Awesome. Thanks, folks.
All right. Take care.
Bye.